the Korean War. A conflict that erupted over 70 years ago and is often called the Forgotten War. But make no mistake, this war shaped the future of Asia and the world in ways that are still being felt today. In just 3 years, millions of lives were lost, cities were destroyed, and the Korean Peninsula was left divided. In this video, we'll dive deep into the origins, key moments, and legacy of the Korean War. To understand the Korean War, we need to go back to the end of World War II. In 1945, after Japan's defeat, Korea, which had been under Japanese occupation for 35 years, was divided along the 38th parallel. The Soviet Union occupied the north, and the United States occupied the south. This division was supposed to be temporary, but soon the Cold War turned this line into a flashpoint between two competing ideologies, communism and democracy. The North, under Kim Il-sung, became a communist state, supported by the Soviet Union and later China. The South, led by Syngman Rhee, formed a capitalist government with U.S. backing. Tensions between the two sides simmered as both leaders wanted to reunify Korea, but on their own terms. On June 25, 1950, those tensions exploded into full-scale war. North Korean forces, heavily equipped with Soviet tanks and artillery, launched a surprise invasion into the south. Within days, they captured Seoul, the South Korean capital, and pushed deeper into the country. The South Korean army was ill-prepared and overwhelmed. The United Nations, led by the United States, quickly intervened, forming a coalition to defend South Korea. This was the first major military test of the United Nations in the post-World War II era. Enter General Douglas MacArthur. The seasoned American commander led the UN forces. His daring and decisive strategies would play a pivotal role in the early stages of the war. By September 1950, North Korean forces had pushed the UN and South Korean troops all the way down to a small corner of the peninsula, known as the Pusan Perimeter. It looked like the North might win. But then, MacArthur launched one of the boldest military operations in modern history, the amphibious landing at Incheon, a port far behind enemy lines. On September 15, 1950, UN forces landed at Incheon and quickly recaptured Seoul. This stunning victory cut off North Korean supply lines, forcing them into a retreat. In just weeks, the tide of the war had completely turned. UN forces pushed the North Koreans back past the 38th parallel and advanced toward the Yalu River, the border with China. It seemed like the war might be over, but that's when China made its move. In October 1950, China entered the war. Hundreds of thousands of Chinese volunteer troops poured across the Yalu River, catching the UN forces off guard. Fighting in the harsh winter conditions, Chinese forces pushed the UN troops back down the peninsula, retaking Seoul in January 1951. The war became a brutal stalemate, with both sides suffering heavy casualties in a war of attrition. Seoul would change hands 4 times during the conflict. For the next 2 years, the war was fought along the 38th parallel, with neither side making significant gains. By 1953, both sides were exhausted. On July 27, 1953, an armistice was signed at Panmunjom, creating a demilitarized zone, or DMZ, along the 38th parallel. The war ended without a clear victor, and Korea remained divided, just as it had been before the conflict began. The armistice was not a peace treaty, and technically, the Korean War never officially ended. To this day, North and South Korea remain separated by one of the most heavily fortified borders in the world. The legacy of the Korean War is still very much alive. South Korea would go on to become an economic powerhouse, while North Korea became an isolated, authoritarian state. The Korean Peninsula remains a critical hotspot in global geopolitics, with tensions flaring up even today. The Korean War may not receive the same attention as other 20th-century conflicts, but its impact is undeniable. It shaped the Cold War, defined U.S. foreign policy in Asia, and left a lasting scar on the Korean people. As we reflect on this forgotten war, we remember the millions who lost their lives and the enduring division that still shapes the world today. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more history content. What are your thoughts on the Korean War? Let us know in the comments below.